Ever wonder what happens when an ugly loser otaku meets the most popular girl in school? Spoiler alert, it's not your typical love story. And no, we're not talking about just any popular girl. Alya is so adored that the students practically bow down to her, treating every step she takes like it's sacred ground. Imagine a girl with snow-white hair that glistens like freshly fallen snow, eyes as deep and blue as clear summer sky, and a smile that could light up the darkest room. Her beauty is almost otherworldly, making it hard to believe she's real and not some character stepped out of a fantasy novel. Enter Walmart Timothy Chalamet, who despite his $2 haircut and overconfidence thinks he can win her over. He strides up to her, smirking as if he's already conquered the world, and tries to charm her with a cheesy pickup line. But Alya, with her grace and poise, gives him a look colder than the Arctic. She shuts him down with a firm yet devastating, "I'm not interested," that echoes through the hallway like a final judgment. The rejection is so swift and brutal that it's like watching a train wreck in slow motion. Everyone can't help but stare. And just like that, with a mere glance and a few choice words, she leaves him and the entire school speechless. Haktua on him, literally. But the story doesn't end there. The next morning, Alya strolls into class and finds Masachika, our ugly loser otaku, catching up on some much needed sleep. She wakes him up only to find out he was binge watching anime all night. When she sarcastically asks if he was up all night on Twitter, Masachika admits he was busy watching anime recaps. Alya rolls her eyes and calls him insane, but Masachika is unapologetic. He's willing to wear a straitjacket for anime culture. Alya then mutters something in Russian, and when Masachika asks what it means, she just says he looks pathetic. Little does she know, Masachika understands every word. First period chemistry rolls around, and Masachika realizes he forgot his textbook. He slides over to Alya's, struggling to stay awake. When the teacher asks for the answer, Alya points to a random spot in the book, and Masachika confidently gives the wrong answer. The teacher then turns to Alya, who effortlessly gives the right answer. Masachika, feeling betrayed, asks why she threw him under the bus. Alya, with a mischievous grin, just says she was pointing to the question number. Yeah right, Haktua indeed. Later, Masachika is caught messing with his phone by Alya, who reminds him that using phones during class is against the rules, unless it's an emergency. She grabs the phone and sees a picture of a silver-haired anime goddess. In Russian, she sarcastically comments on how her hair is silver too, calling him a cheater. Masachika catches every word, but pretends he doesn't, leaving Alya to think she's still keeping her secret. During lunch, the student council, Alya, her sister Maria, and Yuki join Masachika and his friends. Yuki mentions that Masachika and her used to be in the same middle school, much to Alya's surprise. The boys, overwhelmed by the girl's presence, decide to leave, calling the girls too shiny for the virgin eyes. Yuki then asks Masachika if he'd consider joining the student council, but he jokingly says he'd rather watch the 2010 Airbender movie we don't talk about. Alya, catching on, switches to Russian and says something about him being capable, but Masachika knows she's just teasing him. Later, Masachika reminisces about his childhood, playing with a blonde Russian girl whose name he can't remember. He wakes up early the next morning to tidy the classroom, surprising Alya, who arrives first. She jokes that he must have stepped in the mud since his socks are dirty, then shyly asks if he'll join the student council. Masachika declines, but Alya suddenly gets embarrassed and asks him to get her spare socks. When she suggests he put them on her, Masachika tries to refuse, but she insists, saying it'll be a nice treat for him. In Russian, she adds that it would be a treat for her too, leaving Masachika wondering if she's just using him to vent her frustrations. Masachika reluctantly helps, but accidentally touches her leg, causing Alya to kick him and inadvertently give him a glimpse of heaven. As he goes down, he can't help but to think it was worth it. Haktua indeed. Alya gives him the cold shoulder afterward, calling him leg fetish scum in Russian. She apologizes for kicking him, but when he thanks her for the preview of A Promised Neverland, she's beyond embarrassed and decks him before running away. They chase each other around the school until Alya finally gives in. Masachika offers her favorite drink as a peace offering, and Alya, touched, asks in Russian if he wants a sip. Masachika, fearing an indirect kiss, chickens out, pretending not to understand. Alya laughs, thinking he doesn't know any Russian, but little does she know, he's been fluent all along. Some days after the school festival, Masachika meets up with Yuki in a storage space. They're goofing off, having fun, when suddenly Alya pops up out of nowhere, lamenting her role as the third wheel. Apparently, the girls need help sorting out the storage room, so Masachika starts bringing down some board games. This prompts Yuki to brag about her last victory, much to Alya's chagrin. She tells the cringy couple to get back to work, then switches to Russian, wishing she could get some attention too. Masachika shivers on the spot as Alya thinks she's being slick, continues to beg for him to come along. It's a classic Haktua moment, where you try to play it cool but end up making things awkward. Afterward, they head to the student council office, where the president, Kenzaki, introduces himself. He's heard a lot about Masachika and looks at him like an unfinished MAPPA project. Impressive, but clearly underwhelming. Kenzaki insists on buying Masachika dinner to show his appreciation. Masachika tries to decline, but Yuki, ever the troublemaker, nudges him to accept, pointing out that his home is about as lively as a tumbleweed convention. Kenzaki is curious how Yuki knows so much about Masachika's home life, but Yuki just says they go way back. Kenzaki then invites the girls to dinner, and they accept. At dinner, Kenzaki praises the group for finishing their tasks so quickly, prompting Yuki to hype up Masachika as the reason behind their efficiency. Kenzaki asks if Masachika would like to join the student council, but Masachika declines, saying he'd rather step on a Lego. Ouch. Kenzaki tries to persuade him by saying it would improve his recommendation, but Masachika only cares about recommending manga. Later that night, Yuki continues to pester him about joining, leading Masachika to question why she even needs him, giving her apparent surefire win. Kenzaki then drops a bombshell: Alya is planning to run for president. This surprises Masachika, but Alya confirms it, setting up an intriguing race. After dinner, Kenzaki suggests Masachika walk Alya home while he takes care of Yuki. On their way, Alya seems particularly cold, and when they reach her stop, she leaves without her usual Russian goodbye. Masachika heads home, feeling something is off, and finds Yuki lounging on his couch. She ignores his questions, engrossed in her manga featuring a couple with a very questionable family tree. Hello, Alabama vibes. Masachika calls her out on pretending to be childhood friends at school, but Yuki insists that being siblings doesn't contradict that. The next morning, Masachika wakes up to find Yuki on top of him. Classic Hawk Tuo move, awkward and unexpected. He tells her he's not interested in any Targaryen-style shenanigans. Later, they head to the mall, where Yuki checks out clothes while Masachika balks at the prices, feeling his lungs closing in shock. While shopping, Masachika asks Yuki if she's noticed a silver something at the corner of his eye. Yuki, being one step ahead, reveals that she spotted a peeping Tom a while ago. Without a care in the world, Yuki walks right up to Alya, who tries to play it cool, claiming she only saw them moments ago. Yeah, right. Yuki invites Alya to join them for lunch at a spicy food joint. Masachika tries to warn Alya about the intensity of the food, comparing it to the bomb from Hot Ones, but Alya insists on coming along, ignoring his warnings. Moments later, they stand before the Gates of Hell, aka the restaurant's entrance. Alya, not one to back down, steels herself for the challenge. Inside, Yuki gleefully explains the level of spiciness, while Masachika tries to order something milder for Alya. Despite his best efforts, Alya ends up with a dish that makes her feel like she's been hit by a truck, if that truck were driven by a chili pepper. As Alya begins to suffer, she begs for help in Russian, but refuses assistance when offered. Yuki, proving to be no better than the devil, suggests adding even more spice, and Masachika realizes Yuki's doing this on purpose, another Hawk Tuo moment, where the obvious troublemaker has everyone wrapped around her finger. Despite knowing better, Alya pours in the extra spice and takes a bite, promptly regretting her life choices as she screams Bloody Mary and rushes outside. Masachika finds her cooling off outside and suggests getting some ice cream. As they chat, Masachika suddenly asks Alya why she wants to be the student council president. Alya says she doesn't need a reason to aim high, but when pressed further, she admits that she doesn't have a running mate yet and might just pick someone random because of the rules. Switching to Russian, she suddenly wishes Masachika would run with her. This brings back a memory for Masachika of a girl ugly crying over losing an election, making him feel guilty. Alya asks if Masachika has any plans after the student council race, to which he says he doesn't, adding that Yuki won't be back for a while. Alya then invites him to follow her shopping. Masachika comments that it might imply a closer relationship between them, but he realizes Alya doesn't have many friends due to her prickly, Miss Perfect attitude. Deciding to humor the silver tsundere wannabe, they head to the store. Alya, curious why Masachika is being so nice, gets upset, thinking it's because he expects her to lose the presidency. She angrily heads to the changing rooms, determined to impress with her fashion sense. Before she starts trying on clothes, she remembers that otakus have active imaginations, so she asks Masachika to move further away so he doesn't hear any sounds. Once she's assured of her privacy, she starts putting on a fashion show. When she finally reveals an outfit, Masachika genuinely compliments her, putting in more effort than when your girlfriend asks if she looks fat. Alya, flustered, closes the curtain and has a mini heart attack, while Masachika simultaneously experiences liver failure from embarrassment. Alya wonders if Masachika is used to giving compliments because of his interactions with Yuki, so she decides to try a boyish outfit like Yuki's. Masachika, ever supportive, tells her she looks cool, making her blush even more. Alya tries on outfit after outfit, each time fishing for more compliments from Masachika, who is probably dying inside from the sheer awkwardness. Finally, she decides to take a risk with something a bit revealing, intending to tease Masachika with some skin. However, when she opens the curtain, she finds Yuki standing there, with Masachika sporting a blanking stare. A classic Hawk Tuo moment, where the surprise is as unwelcome as it is unexpected. Switching to Russian, Alya wishes she could disappear, which Masachika translates for Yuki, who then calls her a big baby. Later on the train ride home, Alya spaces out, wondering who would win in a fight between Madara and Saitama, but snaps back to reality when Masachika and Yuki start saying their goodbyes. As they leave, Alya starts freaking out about the skimpy skirt she wore earlier, and then it hits her. Why did both Masachika and Yuki get off at the same station? The story picks up with Alya heading home, where her sister Maria immediately notices that Alya is looking a bit emo for a change. Maria, being the ever-observant sister, asks Alya what's wrong. Alya, trying to play it cool, brushes off the question, but Maria isn't easily fooled. She presses Alya, asking her point blank if she has feelings for Masachika. Alya deflects, insisting they're just friends, but Maria is skeptical, especially considering Alya's usual disdain for indifferent slackers like Masachika. Cue the flashback. 6 years ago, back in Russia, Alya was the epitome of an overachiever. During a class project, her group was supposed to work together, with the winners receiving a prize. Alya, the ever-diligent student, went all the way into town to conduct interviews and gather research. She was excited to contribute, but when she returned to school, she found her group mates were completely unmotivated. They dismissed her enthusiasm, even telling her she was doing too much when she presented them with what could only be described as a dissertation-level contribution. They said she should chill, but Alya, not one to do things halfway, insisted on pushing forward. This dedication led to a conflict with the group, leaving her to finish the project on her own. When the time came to announce the winners, another group took the prize, leaving Alya feeling defeated. On her way home, she blamed herself for expecting anyone else to be as driven as she was. This experience sparked the beginning of what she called her woke feminist arc, deciding to rely on herself and not expect much from others. Fast forward a few years, and Alya finds herself at a prestigious Japanese school, where she meets Masachika, a student who could be best described as the sloth prince. From the moment she met him, Alya could see Masachika was a laid-back, indifferent character, barely lifting a finger and seemingly getting tired from just breathing. The school festival rolled around, and Alya, true to form, took it upon herself to handle everything. While others suggested she relax and enjoy the festival, Alya was determined to give it her all, even if it meant pricking herself over and over from exhaustion. Enter Masachika, who, seeing Alya's intense dedication, brought her a permission slip from the handicrafts club, allowing them to stay late and assist with preparations. This gesture shocked Alya, who couldn't believe the slacker had done something so thoughtful. Masachika tried to convince her that there was no need to do everything alone, but Alya, ever the perfectionist, gave him a speech about the importance of quality and not compromising on standards. It was a classic Hawk Tuo moment, where someone swoops in with a perfectly timed intervention, yet the outcome remains uncertain. Masachika, in a rare display of assertiveness, suggested that Alya use a bit of emotional blackmail to guilt the others into working harder. This unconventional advice caught Alya off guard, and while she wasn't entirely convinced, she appreciated the gesture. The next day, much to Alya's surprise, the students rallied together, working hard and enjoying themselves in the process. The festival was a success, and Alya for once found herself having fun. During the after-party, she spotted Masachika sitting alone and decided to join him. He teased her about not dancing, hinting that she might have 2 left feet. Alya, not one to back down, retorted that her feet could do things he'd only seen on incognito mode, a sharp comeback that left Masachika momentarily stunned. The conversation took a turn when Masachika referred to her as the Ice Princess, a nickname that Alya had never liked. She explained that the title made her sound like a silver spoon-fed nepo baby, something that she despised because it overshadowed her genuine efforts. Masachika, recognizing her frustration, promised not to call her that anymore, a gesture that touched Alya more than she expected. She thanked him for helping her enjoy the festival and apologized for her early preachy speech about hope. Masachika brushed it off, but Alya, wanting to repay him, asked if there was anything she could do in return. Masachika thought for a moment and asked if he could call her by her real nickname, Alya. She was taken aback, asking what he would get out of it. He simply said he'd have the bragging rights of being chummy with a class idol, and thanked her for the honor. Just as they were having this moment, the Alya fan club, yes, she has a fan club, arrived. The boys started arguing over who should get the first dance with her, even invading her personal space in their eagerness. Alya, overwhelmed by the sheer intensity of their devotion, was ready to bolt when Masachika, in a move worthy of another Hawk Tuo reference, grabbed her hand and declared that she was already taken. This sudden declaration made Alya's heart race, as she wondered if he meant it seriously. He challenged her to see how quickly she could pick up on the dance steps, and she gladly accepted, leaving her admirers in the dust. From then on, Masachika returned to his usual lazy self, while Alya continued her role as the hard-working, dedicated student. Despite their bickering and Alya's frequent, venomous violations, her way of expressing her frustrations, there was an undeniable bond forming between them. Maria, ever the romantic, couldn't help but notice the classic friends-to-lovers trope playing out before her eyes. Alya, however, was still in denial, insisting that she and Masachika were just friends. The next day, Masachika came to the student council to cover for Yuki. Maria, seizing the opportunity, introduced herself as Alya's big sister and council secretary. There was a strange moment when Maria seemed to recognize Masachika, even slipping into Russian for a brief exchange. Later, while shopping for office supplies, they had a lighthearted moment when Maria got distracted by a cute plushie, suggesting they buy one for each council member. Masachika, ever the realist, joked that such a move would ensure that Kenzaki remained a virgin. They laughed it off and continued shopping, with Maria eventually purchasing a plushie for herself. As they walked back, Masachika couldn't help but pity Alya for having such a chaotic sister. They stopped at a tea shop, where Maria got busy chatting with the store owner. Masachika, left to his own thoughts, was reminded of his own family, particularly the day his father told him and his sister Yuki about their parents' divorce. The memory brought a pang of pain, but before he could dwell on it, Maria snapped him back to the present. Noticing his troubled expression, she gave him a comforting hug and patted his hair, a gesture that felt surprisingly familiar and soothing to Masachika, until she accidentally spilled hot tea on him, ruining the moment in classic Maria fashion. And that's the tale of Alya and Masachika. filled with misunderstandings, unexpected kindness, and more than a few Hawk Tuah moments. Will Alya ever admit her feelings for Masachika, or will they continue their dance of denial? Only time will tell. Comment Hawk Tuah if you want a part 2. In the meantime, if you enjoyed the story, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe for more content, and check out our other videos. Follow us on social media, the links are in the description. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.